Report vectors, Lightning 1.
Bogies closing fast from the south. Keep it tight.
Tower, this is Lightning 2-7, requesting takeoff clearance.
Roger that, 2-7. Cleared for takeoff.
Eagle Lead, this is Flight 2. Holding formation tight to the waves.
Copy. Stay low and fast. We're drawing fire from the rear.
All right, listen up. We're going in low under the radar here. They won't expect us from this angle, sir. Exactly. Keep formation tight and watch for the coastal guns. All crews, man your stations immediately.
Wind shear is increasing. Move quickly.
Hit your switches. Engage. Engage.
Wilco, closing fast.
Eagle 1, break right. You've got company.
The blast radius indicates a new emplacement here. That puts the forward operating base within their expanded range.
Understood, sir. We'll adjust the flight path accordingly.
April 18th, 1943. 7:27 a.m. Kukum Field, Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. The runway is a strip of bruised coral and dust, shimmering already in the rising heat. Engine noise pounds the air like a drumline, low, violent, and constant. Inside the cockpit of a Lockheed P-38G Lightning, Major John W. Dew Mitchell leans forward until his oxygen mask nearly brushes the gun sight glass. Two Allison Vive 1710 engines snarl on either side of him, their vibrations threading through the airframe and into his ribs. The Lightning isn't elegant on the ground. It's a strange thing, twin booms, twin propellers, a cockpit pod hung between them like a bullet. Some men love it instantly. Others never stop feeling like they're strapped to a machine that shouldn't exist. Mitchell does not have the luxury of opinions this morning. He watches his manifold pressure, checks his fuel selectors, looks down at the most important object in the cockpit, a Navy-style compass newly installed because he demanded it, because what they're about to do will be flown with dead reckoning, over empty ocean, at wave-top altitude, under radio silence. The kind of navigation where a small mistake becomes a funeral. He lifts his eyes to the far end of the strip. Beyond it, jungle. Beyond that, water. Beyond that, Bougainville, and a moving target the Americans only know about because enemy messages were read, decoded, and passed down in whispers. The briefing room had been hot, cramped, and quiet in a way that felt wrong. The official story, if anyone ever asked, was Coast Watchers. But you could see it in men's faces. Nobody believed in coincidences anymore. Not in 1943. Mitchell pushes the throttles forward. The P-38 surges, tail lightning, nose hunting. Coral dust lashes up behind the wheels. The airspeed needle climbs fast. When he rotates, the runway drops away, and the island's green wall tilts beneath him. He feels the lightning settle into its element. The moment the whole airframe stops being heavy and becomes certain. Behind him, 18 Lightnings are supposed to be going. Supposed to. In war, supposed to dies quickly. Almost immediately, trouble. One aircraft with a tire flattened on the takeoff. Another whose drop tanks won't feed correctly. They peel away, cursed by the physics of rubber and fuel lines. Nobody has time to mourn the math. Every plane matters. Every gallon matters. Mitchell levels off, then pushes down further until the altimeter becomes ridiculous, 50 feet above the ocean, sometimes less. The world narrows into a strip of steel blue water, white caps, and the shiver of heat. At this altitude, a moment of distraction can put a propeller into the sea. The formation stretches behind him, disciplined and tense. The plan is split. A small killer element and the rest climbing higher later for cover. But right now, the ocean is the only witness. There is no radio chatter, no casual jokes. The only voice is the aircraft itself. Propeller pitch changing with tiny throttle adjustments. Wind hiss rising and falling around the canopy. The occasional metallic tick from somewhere behind the instrument panel. You can imagine how this must look from above, if anyone were above. A line of twin-tailed fighters skimming the Pacific like thrown knives, deliberately avoiding the straight route because the straight route gets you seen, and being seen gets you killed. Mitchell's eyes flick to the clock. The mission hinges on timing. Not dogfighting brilliance, not heroics, timing. Far to the northwest, on another runway at Rabaul, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto is climbing into a Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber, an aircraft known for range and speed and for burning like a match when hit. He is traveling on inspection, as senior commanders often do, under escort by a 6M-0s. The Japanese have been warned before. They've survived ambushes before. And yet, Yamamoto's schedule is moving today as if the war hasn't taught the universe to be cruel. Mitchell cannot see any of that. He can only see a compass heading, a stopwatch, and a horizon that refuses to give him landmarks. This is where the P-38 becomes something the Japanese had not fully planned around. Early in the Pacific, many Japanese fighter pilots, veterans of China, men who'd built their confidence in tight turns and close-range duels, had reason to sneer at a big twin-engine American fighter. Too large, too stiff, too dependent on engines and fuel. A brute that would never dance with a zero. But the Pacific doesn't reward dancers. The Pacific rewards whoever can arrive, on time, with bullets left. The Lightning can do that. It carries fuel in places single-engine fighters can't. It hauls external tanks. It reaches across water gaps that swallow lesser aircraft. And when it does meet you, it doesn't need to out-turn you because it can hit hard from a distance with a nose packed tight. One 20mm cannon and 4.50 caliber machine guns, all firing straight ahead without wing convergence tricks. Mitchell watches the minutes slip by. He fights drowsiness because the human brain is not designed to stare at empty water for hours without surrendering to monotony. Every so often, he glances back at the wingmen, checking that the mission is still a mission and not a scattering of lonely aircraft. The route is a deliberate curve out and away, because Japanese watchers and radar stations might be looking for the obvious approach. So the Lightnings wave hop around the Solomons, low enough that the curvature of the earth and the clutter of islands might hide them. Still, Mitchell feels exposed. The sun climbs. The cockpit warms. Sweat gathers under his harness and at the edge of his oxygen mask. The fuel gauges creep downward with a slow, merciless honesty. This is the knife edge. Fly low to remain invisible, but low-altitude flight drinks fuel and punishes engines. Fly higher to save fuel and keep the aircraft happier, and you risk being spotted. Risk the enemy turning away before you ever see them. Mitchell keeps them down. Minutes later, the ocean ahead begins to change color. Subtle at first, that could mean shallow water. That could mean reefs. That could mean land is somewhere beyond the haze. His hand tightens on the yoke. Because if his calculations are right, if the decoded itinerary is right, then in the next stretch of sky at exactly the right minute, a formation will appear that has no business being here at this altitude, on this heading, at this time, and the longest fighter intercept run of the war will suddenly become a gunfight. April 18th, 1943. 9:34 a.m. over southern Bougainville, near the approach to Balalay. The ocean finally gives way to land, an uneven smear of jungle green rising out of haze. Bougainville sits there like a dark fist, its mountains bruised purple by distance. The lightnings are still low, still silent, still threaded tight along their planned heading. Major Mitchell glances at the clock again, then back to the horizon. And then it happens. At first it's almost nothing. Two tiny specks sliding out of the haze, moving with the steady confidence of aircraft that believe the sky belongs to them. Then more shapes form around them, and you can feel the entire American formation stiffen as if the ocean air has turned to wire. Mitchell's throat goes dry. They're right on time. Ahead, two Mitsubishi G4M Betty bombers, long-bodied with greenhouse noses, descending toward their destination. Around them, like hornets protecting something precious, Zero fighters, already angling to cover their approach. Mitchell's mind snaps through the plan. The top cover element is supposed to climb and keep Japanese fighters busy. The killer flight is supposed to dive in and take the bombers. The P-38 surge upward as if pulled by a hook. Drop tanks jettison. You hear the thunk, feel the sudden lightness, see the silver cylinders tumble away into the blue. They fall end over end, flashing in the sun before the sea swallows them. Not all of them. Off to one side, one Lightning Lieutenant Ray Hine? No, Mitchell's eyes flick, registering a different tail number one of the killers. Lieutenant Besby Holmes. His tanks refuse to separate. You can almost imagine the curse in his cockpit, the frantic glance at the switch, the hard shove, the second try. Nothing. The extra drag is a hand clamped on his shoulder. He and his wingman peel away toward the sea, not cowardice physics. A P-38 dragging tanks into a climb is a slow target and a dead man. Mitchell breaks radio silence just long enough for a single, sharp order voice clipped, urgent, the kind of tone that doesn't invite questions. Lanfear, Barber, go. The two designated hunters, Captain Thomas Lanfear Jr. and Captain Rex Barber, push their lightnings harder. The Allisons howl. The airspeed needles climb. The nose of each aircraft lifts toward the descending bombers. The Japanese react instantly. You can see it in the Zeros. The way they drop their own tanks, the way they roll into dives with beautiful, lethal economy. They've done this before. They've eaten lone intruders before. They expect these big twin-engine Americans to get tangled, to get slow, to get chopped apart. Lanfear does not let them. He turns into them head-on, aggressive, almost reckless, climbing as if he means to ram the sky itself. His goal is simple. Pull the escort away. Force the Zeros to commit to him. Buy Barber the opening. Barber, meanwhile, does something the Pacific has taught American pilots to do. When they can't outturn a Zero, he ignores the dance. He goes for the throat. He banks steeply, the horizon snapping sideways, and for a split second, he loses the bombers in the glare and haze, just long enough for doubt to claw at the edge of his mind. Losing sight now could mean losing the whole mission. Losing Yamamoto. Losing the reason they came. Then the shapes reappear closer. Larger, unmistakable. Barber slides in behind the nearest Betty, closing fast. He steadies the nose. The Lightning's concentrated guns are all in the center, no wing convergence, no guesswork. Wherever the nose points, the fire goes. He squeezes the trigger. The P-38 shudders as the 20mm cannon and 4.50 caliber machine guns hammer. Tracers stream forward, bright as welding sparks in daylight. They chew into the bomber's right engine, then rake the rear fuselage, stitching metal and flesh and wiring with the same indifferent line. The Betty jerks. Black smoke begins to pour, thick, oily, unmistakable. One engine coughs and flames. The bomber rolls violently left, dropping altitude. Barber is suddenly too close, too close. The Betty's wing swings through his windscreen like a falling building. Barber yanks his Lightning aside at the last possible moment, missing by a heartbeat. The bomber's torn aircraft filling his canopy with flashing aluminum and smoke. The damaged Betty keeps rolling, losing control. The descent turning into a spiral that looks almost slow from this distance, like a leaf falling, until you realize how fast it's dropping toward the jungle. It disappears into the trees. A flash blooms where it hits, muted by distance, but unmistakably final. A smear of smoke rises through the canopy. Somewhere in that burning wreck, in the shattered metal of a bomber that was never meant to take punishment, lies the most important naval officer in Japan. But the fight isn't over because there's another Betty. The second bomber has already turned, trying to run for cover, trying to reach the sea in the safety of distance. Barber swings after it, while above and to the side, Zeros are converging, thin-winged, fast, angry. Mitchell sees the sky breaking apart into separate violent stories. Lanfear's lightning climbing into the escorts, Barber's P-38 knifing after the second bomber, American top cover beginning to form up higher, trying to keep the Zeros from swarming the killers. The calm, mathematical part of the mission is gone now. Now it's noise and motion and angles men making decisions at hundreds of miles an hour with seconds to live inside. And down below, the island waits, jungle and ridgelines and invisible gun pits are ready to claim any aircraft that loses its fight with gravity. Barber lines up again, closing on the second Betty, and the bomber's tail gun begins to wink small flashes that mean bullets are already in the air. April 18th, 1943. Seconds later, over Bougainville's southern coast. The second Betty is running now, nose down slightly, speed building, trying to trade altitude for distance. Its green fuselage glints in the sun as it angles toward open water. In its wake, the sky is suddenly crowded with thin-winged shapes. Zeros dropping like hawks, their pilots realizing too late that this isn't a random raid. Captain Rex Barber presses forward in his seat, squinting through vibration and glare. The bomber is close enough now that he can see the tailgun position, the little glass blister, and the sharp, intermittent flicker of muzzle flashes. The first rounds don't look dramatic. There's no Hollywood sparkle, just small, dark puffs and a faint streaking that your eyes barely catch until a line of bullets snaps past Barber's canopy, and the airframe jolts as something hits metal with a hard, ugly clang. He does not flinch away. He slides a fraction lower and left, seeking the bomber's blind angle. The Lightning is heavy on the controls at speed, but steady built for this kind of straight-line violence. Barber nudges the nose, careful not to overcorrect. If he overshoots, the bomber survives. If he slows too much, the Zeros behind him will tear him open like paper. He squeezes the trigger again. The P-38 shivers as the cannon and machine guns speak short, controlled bursts. Tracers spear into the bomber's right side, walking forward toward the cockpit. The Betty lurches, then holds, stubborn, wounded, still flying. It's not a fighter. It can't maneuver well, but it can absorb more than a man wants to believe. Barber closes the distance until the bomber fills his windscreen. He can see rivet lines, panel seams, a dark smear where fuel or oil is bleeding out. And then the sky behind him changes. A Zero flashes across his peripheral vision, too close, too fast, a pale shape with red circles on the wings. Barber feels the Lightning's tail lift slightly as he instinctively pushes down to gain speed. Another Zero is coming in from above, angling for a deflection shot. This is exactly what Japanese pilots had always believed about big twin-engine fighters. That once you tied them down, once you forced them into a turning fight, they would become clumsy prey. But the P-38 doesn't need to turn with you. It needs to leave. Barber shoves the throttles forward and lets the Allisons pull him out like a winch line snapping taut. The Lightning surges, and for a heartbeat, He's no longer hunting the bomber. He's simply trying to survive the next 10 seconds. Above, somewhere in the tangle, Captain Thomas Lanfear Jr. is engaged, his lightning rolling, climbing, braking, pulling Zeros away in a messy knot of altitude and speed. Tracers stitch through air. Someone's aircraft, American or Japanese, sheds pieces that glitter like thrown coins. Major Mitchell, higher now, sees the whole fight as a moving geometry problem. His job isn't glory, it's control. He's watching for the moment the mission turns from attack into escape. Because the true enemy is about to become something older than Japan. Fuel. Barber swings back toward the second Betty one last time. He lines up from slightly below, where the bomber's belly curves up and away. The tail gun fires again. Rounds streak past the Lightning's nose. Barber holds steady, then fires, aiming not for the engines now, but for the left wing root where structure, fuel, and control meet. The impact is immediate. A burst of flame blossoms near the wing. The Betty shudders as if struck by a giant hand. Its nose dips. It tries to keep flying, then begins to sink with a heavy inevitability, losing altitude toward the water. Barber watches it fall for only a second. In combat, 1 second is a luxury. He's already scanning for Zeros, already thinking about the compass heading home, already feeling the weight of miles on the gauges. The second Betty hits the sea in a long, sliding impact that throws up spray. The splash looks almost gentle from this height, until the aircraft breaks apart and vanishes. And then, the American pilots do something that feels wrong after a kill. They run. Mitchell signals the withdrawal. The formation, ragged now, altered, missing aircraft, begins to peel away from Bougainville. They dive back down to low altitude, back to wave top. Because every extra foot of height is another chance to be seen, chased, intercepted. The Zeros follow for a time, some aggressive, some cautious. They're not stupid. They know the Americans are far from home. They know the Pacific is a wide, patient assassin. A Zero makes a pass on one of the Lightnings. Tracers rip past a wingtip. The American pilot doesn't try to outturn him. He shoves the nose down, builds speed, and lets distance become armor. Minutes pass. The coastline recedes. The jungle becomes a line. Then even that line dissolves into haze until there is only ocean again. Featureless, endless, accusing. Now the cockpit becomes a different kind of battlefield. Mitchell's eyes flick between compass and clock. He calculates drift. He estimates wind. He stares at the fuel needles like they're countdown timers to oblivion. The drop tanks are gone. The engines are still drinking. There's no friendly island to divert to, not unless you count a reef as a runway. Somewhere behind him, a pilot's voice breaks radio silence, strained, thin. "I'm low on fuel." Another voice, tighter. "Same." Mitchell wants to answer with certainty. He wants to promise they'll make it. But war has taught him not to lie. He keeps them on heading, keeps them low, keeps them moving. Hour after hour, the lightnings drone across empty water, and the adrenaline drains away, leaving only fatigue and the creeping fear that the math won't work out. This is where you understand why range is not a statistic, but a weapon. Range is the difference between a successful intercept and a formation of dead men floating beside their aircraft. When Guadalcanal finally appears, first as a smudge, then as a shape, then as a coastline, the relief is physical. Men realize their jaws are clenched. Their shoulders ache from holding tension for hours. They come in over the coral strip one by one, landing with fuel gauges hovering near the bottom, engines still roaring as if offended by how close they came to silence. Mitchell rolls to a stop and cuts power. The sudden quiet is unreal. He climbs out, boots hitting coral dust, and looks back at the twin booms of the Lightning, this ungainly, long-legged machine that Japanese pilots had once mocked as too big, too stiff, too American. Today, it didn't need to be graceful. It just needed to reach, and it did. Somewhere far to the northwest, in the jungle of Bougainville, and the wreckage of a falling bomber. The Pacific War has shifted by a degree that will matter for years. And the men who flew this mission, men who will argue later about who fired what, know only one thing for certain right now. They went out nearly 1,000 miles into enemy airspace. And they came back. November 23rd, 1943. 6:10 a.m., Dobodura, New Guinea. The airfield is mud and crushed coral laid over swamp and airstrip carved out of a disease map. Dawn comes wet and heavy. The kind of heat that sticks to the skin before the sun is even up. Mosquitoes hang in the air like drifting ash. In the line of revetments, Captain Thomas B. McGuire, Jr. pulls his parachute straps tighter and climbs into the cockpit of his P-38H Lightning. The twin booms are smeared with grime, the metal skin patched and repatched, as if the aircraft has already been in the war for a decade. The ground crew chief leans in close, voice raised over the pre-start clatter. Drop tanks good, guns loaded. Don't bring it back with holes in it, Captain. McGuire's mouth twitches, something that might be a smile if the day weren't already tightening like a noose. He checks the guns, 4.50 calibers, 120 millimeters, all in the nose. No convergence games. No pray you're in the sweet spot. When the lightning points, it kills. Today's target is far enough away that most fighters can't even pretend to be involved. WWII, a Japanese air complex on the north coast runways, dispersal pens, revetments tucked under palms, and camouflage netting. The kind of place that produces enemy aircraft, like a factory produces smoke. The mission brief was blunt. Escort strike aircraft in, fend off interceptors, and if the opportunity presents itself, hunt anything trying to run. McGuire flips the switches and brings the Allisons to life. The engines catch with a cough, then settle into a synchronized growl that makes the whole cockpit tremble. Through the canopy, the other Lightnings come alive, one by one, propeller discs turning into pale circles. A young wingman taxis close and flashes a grin that doesn't reach his eyes. Think they'll come up today? McGuire answers without looking over. They always come up. They take off in pairs, wheels leaving the strip with the same relieved lurch every time, because nobody trusts a New Guinea runway to stay runway. The formation gathers, climbs, and then levels out for the long run over water and jungle. Out here, the Pacific War is measured in miles, not minutes. You feel it in your stomach as the coastline drops behind you. You feel it in the way the fuel needles move with a quiet, obscene patience. In earlier months, Japanese pilots had laughed at the lightning in the way confident men laugh at anything unfamiliar. Twin engines? Big silhouette? They called it heavy. They called it stiff. Some even joked it looked like a pair of airplanes bolted together, hardly the sort of thing that could fight in the sense a Zero fought. But the men who said that were used to wars where the battlefield was always nearby. Over New Guinea, the battlefield is wherever the long-legged aircraft can reach. McGuire watches the sun climb and the haze thicken. The formation pushes onward, throttles set for economy. Below, the sea turns from blue to gray and back again, flecked with white caps like scattered paper. Then the radio crackles, short, clipped, professional. Bandits, 10 o'clock high. McGuire tilts his head and sees them dark specks dropping out of the sun. They grow quickly into aircraft with familiar shapes. A 6M Zeros, light and sharp, wings like blades. The Japanese are above them where they want to be. They're coming in clean, diving for the strike package easy prey, they think. They aren't thinking about the fact that the escort fighters here don't have to win a turning contest. They only have to keep you from touching the bombers and then chase you until you're out of sky. McGuire pushes the throttles forward. The lightning surges and the sound of the engines changes from steady growl to hungry roar. The nose lifts. The airspeed needle climbs. He can feel the aircraft's weight, yes, but he also feels what that weight buys him. Momentum. A Zero breaks first, rolling into a tight, beautiful turn like a gymnast. McGuire doesn't follow the curve. He slices through the air beneath it and climbs straight into the Zero's path as it comes around, forcing the Japanese pilot to choose between completing his turn and eating a burst of cannon fire. The Zero snaps away. Another dives in. McGuire sees the cockpit flash by, just a blink of canopy and fuselage. Tracers whip past his left boom. Something taps the airframe with a metallic tick that makes his shoulders tighten. He pulls, the lightning climbing in a long arc, then rolls and dives, using gravity to build speed rather than bleeding it away. This is the P-38's real insult to pilots who think war is a duel. It turns fighting into math, speed, altitude, distance. McGuire catches a Zero leveling off beneath him, perhaps thinking he's shaken the escort. The Japanese pilot doesn't look back, doesn't see the fork-tailed shape above and behind, engines howling like twin saws. McGuire steadies the gun sight. He waits until the geometry is certain, then he fires. The nose guns hit like a single punch. The Zero's right wing erupts, First smoke, then flame. The aircraft rolls sharply, trying to correct, then drops away in a spiraling fall toward jungle that will not forgive. McGuire doesn't celebrate. He's already scanning for the next threat, because the Zeros aren't the only aircraft coming up. Below, near the coastline, another group is climbing heavier, faster in a straight line. WWII-61. Tony's, the Japanese Army's sleeker interceptor, a machine with more bite in a dive than a Zero. They're trying to catch the strike aircraft as they approach WWII, trying to make the Americans pay before the bombs even fall. McGuire feels the mission tightening into its true shape. This isn't just escort, it's denial. The P-38 is a moving wall placed between Japanese airfields and American bombers, and it's a wall that can move far, far beyond where Japanese pilots expect a fighter to still be dangerous. His wingman calls out, voice strained. 2 on me. 2 high closing fast. McGuire snaps his lightning toward the call, not by turning inside the attackers, but by building speed and cutting across their line like a blade through rope. The Japanese pilots see the twin booms and the blunt nose coming, and for the briefest moment, you can almost feel their surprise. It's here. This far out, it's still here. One of them breaks away. The other hesitates just long enough. McGuire squeezes the trigger again, and the air fills with the bright, straight certainty of American tracers. November 23rd, 1943. Over the north coast of New Guinea, approaching WWII. McGuire's lightning bucks slightly as the guns stop firing. The sudden quiet inside the cockpit, almost louder than the violence that came before. Ahead and below, the Japanese interceptor he'd caught, one of the sleeker Army fighters, stutters in the air, trailing smoke, then drops away toward the jungle like it's been cut loose from the sky. But McGuire doesn't have time to watch it die. His wingman is still in trouble. 2 enemy fighters are on him, one high, one low, working him like a pair of scissors, forcing him to turn tighter and tighter. That's the trap Japanese pilots have always loved. Get you slow, get you committed, and then the knife goes in. McGuire refuses to enter the trap. He does the opposite of what a Zero pilot expects. He extends. He pushes the nose down and pours on power. The lightning surges forward, the twin engines winding up in perfect, angry harmony. The airspeed needle climbs, and the whole world flattens into speed lines, sea, coastline, jungle, all smearing together as he builds the one advantage the P-38 can always cash in: distance. Then he climbs back up, not in a tight spiral, but in a long, smooth arc that trades that speed for altitude without bleeding it away. He's repositioning, not dueling, hunting, not dancing. He crests above his wingman's fight and rolls inverted, looking down through the canopy at a scene that lasts only seconds, but burns into memory. One Japanese fighter pulling hard, trying to stay inside the American's turn. The other sliding in behind, lining up the shot, McGuire picks the rear attacker. He steadies the nose, the gun sight floating on the enemy aircraft like a calm thought in a storm. He fires. The nose guns hammer out a short burst, and the tracers go straight, no wing convergence, no wide scatter, just a line of destruction. The Japanese fighter jolts as rounds strike the fuselage and wing root. A flash, then smoke, then a sudden, ugly yaw. The attacker breaks away, too late to be safe, soon enough to survive for the moment. The second Japanese fighter sees what just happened and snaps into a hard turn, trying to drag McGuire into a carousel. It's instinct, training, pride. The idea that a fighter fight is a test of who can carve the tightest circle. McGuire doesn't follow. He snaps the Lightning through a shallow dive and pulls away again, letting the Japanese pilot turn and turn and turn, burning energy. Like it's free while the P-38 keeps its speed, keeps its altitude, keeps its options. Below, the strike aircraft reach WWII. The first bombs go in with a dull, distant blossoming little brown-gray mushrooms rising from the airfield perimeter. Then the pattern spreads. Along dispersal areas, revetments, fuel dumps. The ground erupts in fragments. Smoke climbs. Fires begin to stitch themselves across the base as if the earth has been punctured and is bleeding flame. The Japanese defenders keep coming up anyway, because that's what they do. Because pride and doctrine and the brutal pressure of war leave little room for not today. McGuire watches enemy aircraft lift off, some already half committed to survival, trying to get out before the next bombs hit. He sees one taxiing aircraft veer, trying to dodge debris. Another lifts, wing wobbling, pilot desperate to get airborne. This is where the Lightning becomes something the enemy cannot talk away. Japanese pilots can mock a twin-engine fighter in a ready room. They can say it's too big, too heavy, too stiff. But when you're climbing out over burning runways and you look up and see that fork-tailed silhouette already waiting above your airfield, already positioned, already fast, there's no joke left to tell. The radio crackles again, escort lead calling the turn. Strike complete. Egress heading 180. That heading is home. That heading is life. It's also the moment when the Lightning reveals the cruelest part of its design. It can keep killing long after other fighters would have to break off. As the Americans turn away from WWII, a cluster of Japanese fighters tries to follow brave or desperate. Maybe both. They're betting the escort will be low on fuel, too cautious to stay engaged. McGuire glances down at his gauges. The needle is lower than he wants. Not panic low, but honest low, the kind of number that makes your breathing change. He hears his own engine note and feels the subtle vibration that tells him the aircraft is still healthy, still ready. He makes a decision that would be suicidal in many other fighters. He stays just long enough. One Japanese fighter lighter, turning beautifully, always trying to pull McGuire into its orbit dives after a lagging American aircraft. It's an opportunist's move. Pick off the slow one, then escape into the clutter of islands. McGuire angles down, not turning with the Japanese pilot, but cutting across his path, forcing the enemy to react. The Japanese pilot tries to swing inside him. The Zero's wingtip seems to carve the air. It's graceful until you realize how much speed that turn is costing. McGuire uses that loss like a lever. He accelerates past, climbs, then rolls back in, setting up a classic boom and zoom pass the Japanese pilot cannot easily answer. For a split second, the Zero is in front of him and slightly below, the canopy glinting. McGuire fires a measured burst. The rounds strike. The Zero flinches. Smoke appears, thin at first, then darker. The Japanese pilot breaks away toward the sea, trying to use distance as shelter. McGuire follows for a few seconds, long enough for the enemy to realize something horrible. The American isn't peeling off. The American is still there. That's the psychological edge the P-38 brings to this theater. It's not just the range. It's what the range does to a man's assumptions. It turns retreat into pursuit. It turns escape into still being hunted. Then Mitchell's voice, another flight lead, firm, controlling cuts through the radio discipline again, because fuel is now the real enemy. Break it off. Home now. McGuire peels away, muscles tight with the effort of restraint. He watches the smoking Zero shrink into the distance and disappear into haze. If this were over Europe, someone might keep chasing. But this is the Pacific. The ocean eats the reckless as efficiently as any gun. The return flight is long, quiet, and heavy. The adrenaline drains. The cockpit heat becomes oppressive. The ocean below looks identical for hour after hour. Men check gauges compulsively. They count minutes. They picture the runway at WWII like it's a promised land. And when the airfield finally appears, mud strip, palm edges, smoke from cook fires, relief hits like a physical blow. McGuire lands with the fuel needle hovering close to the bottom. The Lightning's tires hissing over coral and mud. He taxis in and cuts engines. The sudden silence is so complete, it feels like the war has been switched off until you hear distant bombs again, or a truck backfiring, or a mechanic shouting. He climbs down and looks back at the twin booms and scarred metal. Somewhere out over the sea, Japanese pilots are still telling each other what they want to believe, that the Lightning is awkward, that it can't dogfight, that it's a brute. But out here, brute force is exactly what wins. Because the P-38 doesn't need to outturn you. It only needs to stay with you, farther, longer, and in places you thought no fighter could follow. February 3rd, 1944. 10:02 a.m. Nadzab Airfield, Markham Valley, New Guinea. The morning brief ends the way so many do now, with a map full of blue space and a pencil line that looks almost absurd. A long finger, of course, drawn out over the Bismarck Sea, curving north, then east toward Rabaul. The names on the map land with weight: Simpson Harbor, Tobera, Vunakanao airfields that have been feeding Japanese fighters into the region like blood into an artery. The Americans have hit Rabaul before, with carriers and bombers. But today, the emphasis is different. Today, the bombers are going deep, and the escort is supposed to go deeper still. In the revetments, P-38's idle with that twin-engine menace prop discs shimmering, exhaust heat rippling the air. Ground crews move with the urgency of men who know a small oversight becomes a missing aircraft in the afternoon roll call. Captain J.T. Robbins, a lean-faced lightning pilot with tired eyes and a reputation for being methodical, climbs into his cockpit and runs through the checks like a prayer. The most important of all, the drop tanks hanging under his wings, fat and silver. They're his lifeline. Without them, the Lightning's a great fighter. With them, it becomes something else. A predator that doesn't have to live near the jungle it hunts in. The strike package forms up above the valley bombers, heavy and slow. Escorts weaving around them like watchdogs. The P-38s climb steadily, step by step, fighting the thick tropical air. Higher up, the world changes. The heat falls away, the horizon sharpens, and the sun turns hard and white. Robbins looks out over the wing and sees the Pacific War in motion. Dozens of aircraft stretched across the sky, moving like a living formation. The radio is busy at first, then settles as they cross the coastline. The blue below opens into that endless ocean that always looks calm from altitude. Always looks like it couldn't possibly be hiding 1,000 ways to die. They're already far from home when the first warning comes. Bandits, 12 o'clock, high, multiple. Robin squints and sees them small specks above the formation, descending with a confidence that suggests they're not guessing. They're being guided. Japanese fighters out of Rabaul don't wander into Americans by accident anymore. They're vectored, coordinated. They've learned painfully that the Allies aren't just flying airplanes. They're building a system. But today, the Americans are doing the same thing. The enemy shapes grow into familiar silhouettes. Zeros, some older models, some newer, moving with that signature smoothness, wings thin as knives. And mixed among them, heavier fighters, Ki-43 Oscars, and the occasional sleeker type that doesn't turn like a zero, but dives like it wants to split the sky. A Japanese pilot, somewhere up there, might still be thinking the old thought. That fork-tailed thing is big. It can't turn with me. Robin sees the first Zero peel down toward the bombers in a steep dive. He doesn't chase the dive. He sets up the Intercept. The Lightning is fast in a dive, and it carries its firepower in a tight, unforgiving line. Robbins tips the nose down just enough to build speed, then pulls into the Zero's path as it levels out. The Zero pilot tries to slip sideways like a fish. Robbins fires anyway. The tracers reach out, and the Zero snaps away, not hit cleanly, but forced off his line. That's the first job. Break the attack. A second Japanese fighter comes in, this one committed, closing on a bomber's tail. You can see the bomber crew's response. The dorsal turret turning, the tail gun wagging, muzzles flashing. Robbins pushes forward, closing fast, and lines up from behind and slightly below. For a moment, the Japanese fighter fills his sight picture-painted roundels, canopy glint, a pilot's head barely visible. Robbins squeezes the trigger. The lightning punches. The enemy fighter shudders. A piece breaks off, maybe a panel, maybe something worse, and then smoke begins to pour. The Japanese pilot snaps into a turn, trying to spiral away. Robbins doesn't follow into the spiral. He climbs. Because turning with a zero is how you lose what makes the lightning dangerous. And then the sky becomes a tangle. Zigzagging contrails, sun glare, gun flashes, aircraft slipping past each other at closing speeds that don't leave room for forgiveness. Robbins catches a glimpse of a bomber taking hits, skin shredded, smoke trailing but still holding formation. Somewhere, another P-38 rolls inverted and dives. Twin booms slicing through the air like a fork. The fight pushes outward from the bombers like ripples from a stone. And that's when Robbins sees something that makes his stomach tighten. A pair of Japanese fighters breaking away, not down, not into the fight, but out toward the east. Running. It's instinctive to let them go. Escort doctrine says, stay with the bombers. Don't chase. Don't split the cover. But this is 1944 now. The U.S. air war is expanding like a tide. And part of that expansion is confidence in reach. Sometimes, if the math allows it, you can punish the enemy not just in the fight, but on the way home. Robbins glances at his fuel. Not great, not terrible. Enough, if he's careful. He keys his mic. 2 bandits breaking east. I'm going after briefly. There's a pause, then the answer, clipped. Make it quick. Don't get lost. Robbins drops his nose, and the lightning accelerates. The 2 Japanese fighters ahead are trying to use their best defense: separation. They know that if they can stretch the distance, the American will have to abandon the chase or drown. But the lightning, built like a piece of industrial machinery, keeps coming. Minutes pass. The bombers and main escort fall behind, disappearing into haze. Now it's just ocean below, and 3 fighters in a fast-moving line across the sky. The Japanese pilots glance back. They can't hear Robbins' engines, but they can see the fork-tailed shape refusing to shrink. That's when the psychological shift happens, the one the Japanese veterans hate. A Zero pilot expects a chase to end when the pursuer runs out of breath. But the P-38 doesn't breathe like a normal fighter. It drinks. From tanks, from planning, from the cold arithmetic of a long-range war. The first Japanese fighter begins to weave small, sharp movements to spoil Robbins' aim. The second stays straighter, trying to maintain speed. Robbins chooses the straighter one. He closes carefully, never so fast he overshoots, never so slow he loses the gap. His hands are steady on the controls, but his mind is a clock. Every second of chase is fuel. Every correction is drag. He gets within range and fires a short burst. The rounds miss, barely, but the message is delivered. The Japanese pilot knows the American is close enough to kill. The enemy fighter jinks harder now, pulling into a turn that looks beautiful and bleeds energy. Robbins doesn't follow the curve. He cuts across it, tightening the geometry until the enemy's path intersects his gun sight again. He fires. This time the tracers strike home, into the fuselage, into the wing root. The Japanese fighter spasms, smoke pouring out, then breaks downward toward the ocean, trying to escape in a dive. Robbins follows for only a moment long enough to confirm the aircraft is losing control, then breaks off sharply, climbing and turning back, because his fuel needle has reached the part of the dial that doesn't negotiate. Now the enemy has vanished behind him, and so has the bomber stream. The horizon looks identical in every direction. The sun gives no mercy. The ocean offers no landmarks. And this is the real price of long-range hunting. Robbins levels out, steadies the compass, and points his lightning toward where he believes the formation will be. The radio crackles faintly at first, broken, distant, like a voice at the end of a tunnel. Then clearer, then comforting. Robbins exhales a breath he didn't realize he was holding and eases the throttles back, coaxing the engines, stretching the remaining fuel like it's made of cloth. Far behind him, over Rabaul, the war is still raging. But up here, over 1,000 miles of hostile air and empty water, the Lightning is doing what it was built to do. February 3rd, 1944, 3:41 p.m. Nadzab Airfield, Markham Valley, New Guinea. The mountains are turning blue in the late light when Captain J.T. Robbins finally sees the valley open beneath him. Green folds, river cuts, the thin scar of the runway. His fuel needle sits in a place that doesn't feel real, hovering just above empty, as if held there by stubbornness alone. He brings the Lightning in gently, almost coaxing it to stay airborne, until the wheels can do their job. The aircraft settles onto the strip with a hard, satisfying thump, tires biting coral, then rolls out. The twin engines still roaring, still alive, still offended by the idea they ever had limits. Robbins taxis in and cuts power. Silence slams into the cockpit. The sudden absence of vibration is so abrupt, it feels like something is missing from his body. He pulls off his oxygen mask and breathes the thick valley air, hot, dirty, human. A crew chief jogs up, eyes going straight to the drop tank mounts. "Where's your tanks?" Robbins climbs down, boots crunching coral. "In the Bismarck Sea somewhere," he says, voice flat. "Used 'em." The crew chief glances at the fuel gauge through the cockpit glass and whistles once, low. "Jesus." Robbins doesn't answer. He looks up at the sky where the formation should be returning in ones and twos, counting silhouettes the way men count heartbeat seconds. not everyone comes back. A lightning arrives trailing smoke, landing fast, wobbling as the pilot fights to keep it straight. Another circles once and drops in heavy, too heavy, like it's carrying something dead inside the airframe. Ground crews run. Stretchers appear without ceremony. And as the last aircraft roll in, the pilots drift toward the operations shack in that quiet, exhausted way aviators have after long-range combat. Shoulders slumped, eyes still searching the sky, even when the sky is right there. Inside the shack, the air is thick with sweat and cigarette smoke, and the sound of a pencil scratching names. A lieutenant at the board is tallying. Who flew? Who returned? Who's missing? Robbins hears someone behind him mutter, it half joke, half curse. Fork-tailed devil, that's what they're calling it now. A few men chuckle, but it isn't humor. It's a way to name the thing that had kept them alive. A way to believe the enemy is afraid too. In the back of the room, a navigator points at the map and drags his finger along the route they just flew. Raboul is here, he says. That's the line. The finger stops over open water. And this is where you boys were fighting. Someone whistles softly. Someone else shakes his head like he doesn't believe the distances on paper. That's the Pacific's secret weapon. Not a plane, not a gun space. Space that makes everything harder. Space that makes bravery feel small. Space that turns a simple mistake into an obituary. The Lightning is one of the few aircraft that can fight inside that space without being swallowed by it. And that fact is starting to change the behavior of the enemy. March 15th, 1944, 4:58 a.m. Nadzab Airfield, New Guinea. Rain has turned the ground to a slick paste. The pre-dawn darkness feels like a lid pressed down on the valley. In the revetments, P-38 sit loaded with drop tanks and ammunition, their metal skins beaded with water. The target today is another long one, a deep sweep meant to strip Japanese airfields of the confidence to operate freely. It's part of the widening American strategy. Push the air boundary outward, day by day, until Japanese aircraft can't leave their runways without being hunted. In the cockpit of his Lightning, Robbins listens to the engines catch and settle into their steady twin roar. He watches the oil temps rise. He watches the prop governors stabilize. He watches the drop tanks under the wing and feels the weight of them in his mind more than in the aircraft. Because the tanks aren't just fuel. They're permission to be far from home and still be lethal. The formation lifts off into the dark, climbing into a sky that looks bruised by weather. The aircraft form up above the valley and then turn out over the coast, heading into that huge black-blue emptiness where the horizon doesn't give you anything to hold on to. At altitude, the air turns colder. Frost forms at the edges of canopies. The cockpit becomes a tight little world of instrument needles and radio murmurs. Then the radio goes quiet. Not because it's peaceful, because they're approaching the part of the map where talk is dangerous. Far ahead, a faint orange glow begins to stain the horizon. Dawn. And with dawn comes the sense of exposure, because every mile traveled in daylight is a mile traveled under the possibility of being seen. Robin scans. He knows what the Japanese used to do. He's read the combat reports. He's heard the stories from men who survived the early months, when Zeros would climb to meet intruders with a kind of arrogant certainty, expecting the sky to bend to them. But now, deep in 1944, something has changed. Japanese pilots are learning to conserve. They don't always chase. They don't always climb to meet. They wait.
That's where we lost them.
They pick moments. They try to draw Americans into fuel traps, force them to fight longer than their tanks allow. It's the same weapon the Pacific has always used. Only now it's being used deliberately. The first enemy contacts appear as small specks near the Sun fighters climbing from an airfield that's still hidden under haze. The Americans don't need to see the runway to know where it is. The direction of the climb tells them. A pair of Japanese fighters breaks away and dives toward the American formation, then snaps up into a turn testing. Robbins watches their angles, the way a hunter watches an animal's gait. They aren't committing. They're probing, trying to get the P-38s to chase, to separate, to burn fuel. One of the Japanese fighters suddenly drops its nose and runs straight, low, toward cloud and distance. It is the oldest lure in aerial combat. Follow me. Robbins feels the itch in his hands. The lightning can catch him. The lightning can kill him. The lightning can, if Robbins lets it, pull him 100 miles off course and leave him staring at an empty ocean with a dead gauge. He hears another pilot key the mic, voice tight. He's running permission to pursue. A pause. Then the flight lead's answer is cold. Negative. Stay with the plan. Robbins holds formation. He forces his eyes away from the fleeing speck. He tells himself this is discipline, not missed opportunity. And yet, as the Japanese fighter continues to run, confident now, as if it knows the Americans won't follow, Robbins sees the insult in it. Because somewhere in the enemy pilot's mind is the belief that distance will save him. That's when Robbins makes the decision that the Lightning was designed to make possible, and that men in shorter-legged fighters can't afford. He keys his mic, voice controlled. I can take him. Quick, I've got the gas. A beat. 2 minutes, the lead says. Then you're back. Robbins shoves the throttles forward, and the twin Allisons answer like they've been waiting for an excuse. The Lightning surges out of formation and points at the fleeing Japanese fighter. The speck grows. The distance closes. The enemy pilot glances back, sees the fork-tailed shape still coming, and you can almost feel the moment his confidence cracks. Because the chase that was supposed to end isn't ending. Type continue to generate the next section. Continue section 8. The fuel trap. Previous section text. Continue seamlessly from where this left off. March 15th, 1944. Over open water east of New Guinea. Dawn fully breaking. The Japanese fighter ahead is low and fast, skimming beneath a thin layer of cloud, like it's trying to disappear into the seam between sea and sky. The aircraft's silhouette is small, clean single engine, light wing loading, the kind of machine that wants you to chase it in circles until your fuel is gone.
Altitude 10,000.
Captain J.T. Robbins closes the throttle just a hair, then pushes it forward again, micro adjustments that keep his lightning in the sweet spot. He isn't sprinting, he's pacing. The P-38's twin engines give him options. Climb without sacrificing everything. Accelerate without begging gravity for help. His gun sight sits steady. But the enemy keeps weaving small, maddening jinx meant to spoil the shot. The Japanese pilot knows what he's doing. He's not trying to win a duel. He's trying to make Robbins commit. Robbins glances down at the fuel gauge. Not empty, not safe. That needle is a quiet voice that says, every second matters now. The Japanese fighter suddenly snaps into a tighter weave, then drops lower, nearly hugging the water. It's a classic Pacific trick, force the attacker down where he can't dive for speed, where altitude can't be traded for escape, where the horizon offers no vertical room. Robbins doesn't follow him all the way down. He stays slightly higher, just enough altitude to keep his own options alive, and lets the P-38 speed do the work. The fork-tailed silhouette behind the Japanese fighter refuses to shrink. It keeps pressing, patient as a tide. The enemy pilot glances back again. Robbins can't see his face, but he can read the message in the aircraft's behavior. The slight increase in jinking, the sharper corrections, the momentary nose bobble that betrays tension. The Japanese pilot had expected the American to break off. He hasn't. Robbins keys his mic short burst, low power, directed at the lead he left behind. Closing, still in pursuit. Static. Then the flight lead's voice, tight. 2 minutes is up. Robbins looks at the compass. He's drifted farther than he likes. Farther than is comfortable in a war where comfort is the first thing the ocean steals. He looks again at the enemy fighter, now slightly larger, still trying to bleed him out. He makes the decision fast, because hesitation is how you die out here. One pass, Robbins says. Then I'm turning. He eases the nose down, building a final slice of speed, and waits not for the enemy to stop weaving, but for the weave to repeat in a way he can predict. It's like watching a pendulum. The pattern becomes inevitable. When the fighter jinks right, Robbins doesn't swing right with him. He aims for where the enemy will be when the weave comes back left. The moment arrives, clean and sudden. Robbins squeezes the trigger. The Lightning's nose guns roar, and the aircraft shudders with the recoil. Tracers streak forward, and this time they don't just threaten, they hit. The Japanese fighter twitches as rounds strike the rear fuselage and wing root. Smoke erupts, then thickens into a darker stream. For a heartbeat, the enemy aircraft keeps flying as if disbelief alone can hold it up. Then the engine begins to cough. The fighter drops its nose and dives toward the sea, trying to save itself with speed. Smoke pours harder now. A glint of flame appears small at first, then bright. Robbins follows for only a second, just long enough to confirm the aircraft is losing control. Then he breaks away sharply, hauling the Lightning into a climbing turn back toward his own formation. Because the kill doesn't matter if you don't come home. The world immediately becomes emptier and more frightening. With the enemy gone from his windscreen, all Robin sees is ocean featureless, enormous, and a sky that looks exactly the same in every direction. The sun has risen enough to glare off the canopy, washing out the subtle cues a pilot uses to sense drift. He steadies the compass, checks the clock, adjusts heading to account for wind. The Lightning drones forward, engines running smoothly. But Robbins is suddenly aware of how fragile smoothness is. He tries the radio again. Nothing but faint static. For several long seconds, he hears only engine noise and the hiss of air over the canopy. Then, just as his stomach begins to tighten, he catches it. A weak, broken voice on the edge of reception. Lightning flight. Report. Position. Robbins answers, voice controlled, keeping the transmitter burst short. Robbins returning. Off chase. Heading back. A pause, then the lead again, clearer now. Get your tail back in here. We're turning south. Relief hits Robbins like someone loosened a strap around his chest. He leans the Lightning into a gentle turn, careful not to waste speed, careful not to climb too high. With fuel this low, every unnecessary maneuver is a tax. Minutes pass. Then, through the haze ahead, he sees them. Tiny specks that grow into familiar shapes. -38S in loose formation. Drop tanks still attached on some, jettisoned on others. He slides in behind and to the side, taking his place like a man returning to a lifeboat. No one congratulates him over the radio. Not because they don't care, but because they're still counting miles. Still counting fuel, still listening to their engines for any hint of betrayal. The flight lead's voice comes again, calm but edged. Bandits may follow. Stay tight. Don't get sucked into another chase. Robbins answers with a single click. They hold course south, back toward the coast, back toward the thin strip of land that separates possible survival from certain drowning. Below, the ocean looks innocent. It always does. That's the Pacific's cruelest habit-making death look like scenery. As the formation approaches the coastline, a pair of distant shapes appears high, maybe Japanese fighters, maybe nothing. The Americans don't climb to meet them. They don't bite at the bait. They keep going, disciplined, grim, letting the distance do what distance always does in this war. Stretch everyone thin. When New Guinea finally fills the windscreen jungle ridges, river scars, clouds snagging on mountains, Robbins feels his shoulders unclench for the first time in half an hour. The runway is still far, the fuel is still low, but the ocean is behind him now, and that matters. He looks out at the twin booms of his own aircraft scarred, streaked with oil and exhaust, and he understands again why this machine changed the air war out here. Not because it could pirouette with a zero, because it could refuse to let the enemy's distance become safety and still have just enough left to come home. March 15th, 1944, 12:18 p.m. Nadzub Airfield, New Guinea. The valley air hits like a wet blanket as the lightnings return in dribs and drabs, each landing carrying its own private arithmetic. How much fuel was left, how close the engines came to sputtering, how many miles of ocean the pilot had stared at while imagining a forced ditching. Robin's P-38 rolls to a stop near its revetment. The ground crew is already moving in, hands on cowling latches, eyes on oil streaks, looking for the kind of damage that kills you on the next mission instead of this one. Robbins climbs down, legs stiff, and doesn't say much. He doesn't need to. The crew chief points at the empty tank racks under the wings, then at the gun ports. "Used your ammo," the chief says, as if it's an accusation. Robbins pulls his gloves off slowly. "Had to." A few yards away, another pilot is already talking too fast, adrenaline still in his throat. "They tried to lure us, low over the water, wanted us to chase until we drowned." A mechanic snorts. "That's one hell of a trick." "It works," the pilot says, "on anything that can't follow." Robbins doesn't join the conversation, but he hears it anyway. Because this is what the Pacific has become by 1944. Not just a contest of pilots, but a contest of systems. It's not one brilliant fighter ace dueling another in a clear patch of sky. It's navigators measuring drift, intelligence officers pinning enemy habits to maps, ground crews learning which fuel line fittings fail in humidity, and commanders planning strikes where range matters more than swagger. The Lightning fits into that system like a key in a lock. Later, inside the operations shack, the air is cooler barely and the mood is sharp. A colonel stands near the map board, pointing with a stick, not at a target, but at a corridor. A broad lane of ocean and islands and airfields that the Americans are slowly turning into a no man's land for Japanese aircraft. "This is what we're doing now," he says. "We're not just reacting. We're not waiting for them to come to us." He taps the map at a cluster of Japanese bases. "We're making it expensive for them to fly, period." A young lieutenant in the back, new enough to still have questions, raises a hand.
We have confirmation.
"Sir, why do they keep coming up, even after we hit their fields?" The colonel doesn't answer like it's a classroom. He answers like it's a war. Because if they don't, we own the sky. And once we own the sky, we own the sea lanes. And once we own the sea lanes, they starve. He pauses, letting the words settle. And they know it. The intelligence officer steps forward next, flipping a page on a clipboard. He's careful with his language, too careful. Like a man used to talking about secrets without admitting their secrets. Enemy air activity remains strong, but behavior is changing, he says. More hit and run, more attempts to draw pursuit away from escort. They're learning to use distance and fuel against us. Robbins watches the colonel's face. There's no surprise there. The Americans have learned too. That's the part people misunderstand when they romanticize air combat. Both sides adapt. The enemy is not a cardboard villain that keeps repeating mistakes for your benefit. The enemy watches your victories and tries to find the seam in them. So the Americans tighten their own seam. Flight discipline, timed rendezvous, fuel planning, and most of all, escorts that can still fight after flying halfway across a map. The P-38 is not alone in that future, but right now, it's the workhorse of it. May 8th, 1944, 6:03 a.m., Biak Island, Schouten Islands. The airfield is new, rough, and still smells like fresh-cut jungle. Trucks grind past piles of pierced steel planking. Engineers in muddy boots work like men racing a clock. Because every day an airstrip isn't ready is another day the next island can't be hit. A flight of lightnings warms up in the pale dawn. Their pilots climb in with the ritual of men who don't believe in luck, but perform the motions anyway. Straps, oxygen, radio check, magnetos, props, fuel selectors. Today's mission is escort again, another outward push. The Pacific War is becoming a ladder, rung by rung. Each new base extends the arm of American air power, and each extension forces Japanese aircraft to defend a wider ring with fewer resources. One Lightning pilot, Lieutenant Charles Chuck Mason, young, wiry, a face still not fully hardened by war, watches his crew chief give him the thumbs up. Mason returns it, then looks down at his map kneeboard. It's a long route, longer than anything he imagined when he joined up. He remembers stories older pilots told, how Japanese pilots once mocked these twin-boom fighters, how they said you could outturn them, outclimb them, make them look stupid in the sky. But Mason has also read the newest combat notes, the ones written in pencil and sweat. Don't turn with them. Don't chase blindly. Use altitude and speed. Keep the escort intact. Fuel is life. They take off and climb into a sky that's already brightening over the sea. Beneath them, the ocean is a slab of blue glass. Ahead, distant islands sit on the horizon like low shadows. The radio is quiet, except for essential calls. The formation holds. Drop tanks hang under wings like spare lungs. And then hours later, far from Biak, far from anything that feels like a base, Mason sees enemy aircraft rise from the haze. They come up cautiously, then commit in pairs, testing the escort the way a boxer tests a guard. One Japanese fighter makes a run, then breaks away and dives toward the cloud deck baiting. Mason feels the urge to follow. He feels the instinct to prove something. Then he hears his flight leader, calm, firm. Let him go. Stay with the bombers. Mason grips the yoke tighter and forces himself to obey. In the old days, maybe this war was about showing who was better in the air. Now, it's about whether the mission makes it home. The lightnings hold their line. The Japanese fighters circle and probe, then pull back, unwilling to commit into a disciplined wall that can still chase if given permission. Mason watches them peel away and realizes something that feels almost as important as a kill. The enemy is starting to respect the reach, not because the lightning is unbeatable, because it keeps showing up in places it shouldn't be, at times it shouldn't be, with enough fuel left to fight. And that turns the Pacific into a hunting ground, where the hunted can never be sure the horizon is empty. May 8th, 1944. Over the Philippine Sea approaches, west of Biak. Lieutenant Chuck Mason keeps the bombers in sight-dark shapes ahead, steady and heavy, flying like they're dragging the war behind them on invisible chains. The lightnings weave around them in a loose screen, never too far, never too close. Drop tanks still hang under wings on some aircraft. Others have already kicked theirs away, silver cylinders tumbling into the void. The Japanese fighters don't rush in like they used to. They approach in small groups, then peel off, as if measuring the escort's discipline before deciding whether it's worth the price. Mason sees a pair of Zeros flash in and out of cloud shadow. They're quick, they're graceful. They look, for a moment, like the old myth-nimble masters of the air. Then one of them does something that tells Mason everything he needs to know about the war now. It doesn't try to outturn him. It doesn't try to fight him. It tries to drag him away. The Zero dives and runs low toward the cloud deck, offering its tail like an insult. A younger Mason 2 months earlier might have taken the bait without thinking, might have chased to prove he could, might have ended up with a fuel needle at zero and nothing but ocean beneath him. But the flight leader's voice comes again, steady as a metronome. Hold formation. Don't take the hook. Mason obeys. The Zero keeps running anyway, the pilot confident that discipline will restrain the Americans. Confident he can escape by distance, by the simple truth that most fighters can't afford to be far from home for long. Mason watches the enemy shrink into haze and thinks, that used to work. Because the Pacific used to protect you with its size. It used to make pursuit rare and punishment local. Now, with long-range escorts like the P-38, punishment can follow you halfway across your map. The bombers reach their target area. Flak begins to rise, black puffs punching into the air. The first bursts are scattered, then tighten as Japanese gunners find the altitude. Mason hears it faintly, even through the cockpit dull thumps of concussion at distance. A bomber takes a near burst and jolts, wingtip wobbling. The escort tightens instinctively. Somewhere to Mason's left, a lightning rolls in to shoo a diving fighter away from the formation. The Japanese pilot breaks off early, unwilling to commit into the wall. It's strange. The air fight is still dangerous, but it's different now. Less heroic, more clinical. The Americans are building a habit, one that doesn't rely on a single ace or a single miracle. They are building inevitability. May 10th, 1944. 9:22 a.m. makeshift briefing hut, Biak Island. The hut smells like damp plywood and sweat. A fan turns lazily overhead, doing almost nothing. Pilots sit on benches with maps on their knees, cups of bitter coffee in their hands, their faces tanned and drawn. An intelligence officer stands by a pinned map and speaks with the careful tone of a man who knows his words will shape how others stay alive. Enemy pilots are increasingly avoiding sustained engagements, he said. They're trying to conserve aircraft. They're trying to draw our fighters away from bombers. They're trying to force fuel decisions. A pilot in the front older, with a scar at the corner of his mouth, snorts. Means they're scared. The intelligence officer doesn't indulge the bravado. It means they're adapting, he says. They know we can reach farther now. He points with a pencil at the concentric rings drawn around Allied bases. This is what the enemy used to count on, our fighters turning back at the edge of their comfortable radius. Now that radius keeps expanding. Mason watches the pencil trace outward and feels the scale of it in his gut. It isn't one battle. It's a squeeze. The squadron commander steps in next, voice flat, practical. You've all heard the stories. Yamamoto, the long-range intercept, that wasn't luck. That was planning an aircraft that could execute. Mason's eyes flick to the wall map. Somewhere out there, off the edge of what a normal fighter would consider possible, men had flown into enemy space on a schedule tight enough to catch the most protected man in the Japanese Navy. That story had traveled through squadrons like electricity. It wasn't just a kill. It was proof that the Pacific could be crossed by intent. The commander's voice drops a notch. That's what these planes give us, he says. Not turn rate, not style, reach. And reach changes what the enemy believes is safe. June 19th, 1944. 2:40 p.m. Near the Marianas, the edge of a larger war. The sky is crowded in a way the New Guinea pilots still aren't used to. Carrier fighters, bombers, interceptors, contrails crisscrossing like chalk lines. The Pacific War is growing into something vast. Fleets, islands, airfields, entire air arms colliding. Farther back, P-38 still do what they've been doing, escorting, sweeping, hunting, pushing American influence out across the ocean. And across the Japanese side of the cockpit canopy, the psychological map is changing. Because now, when a Japanese pilot breaks away from a fight, he can't assume the American will peel off at some invisible boundary. Now he has to wonder, how far can they follow? That question gnawing, exhausting, constant breaks morale quietly. It turns every retreat into anxiety. It turns every long flight into a calculation of whether a fork-tailed shape might appear behind you. Engines howling, guns already aligned. And that's the P-38's true role in this theater. Not as a glamorous dogfighter, but as a long-armed hunter that turns the Pacific from a shield into a trap. Mason sits outside his tent that evening, listening to the distant mutter of aircraft engines returning from other missions. He looks at the stars above the jungle and thinks about range in a way civilians never do. Range isn't just how far a plane can fly. Range is how far a war can reach into your confidence. And as long as Lightnings keep taking off with drop tanks under their wings, long-legged, unforgiving the Japanese can never fully relax behind distance again. Small detail equals a chewed pencil stub with a flattened pink eraser tied to the kneeboard by a frayed cord. Lesson for the audience. In the Pacific, victory is rarely a single burst of courage. It is a chain of tiny choices that keep the math alive. That chewed pencil stub, eraser flattened from nervous thumbs, is how a pilot holds a heading when the ocean offers no landmarks. It is how you mark the minute you must arrive, the drift you must correct, the fuel you cannot spend chasing bait under the clouds. Coral dust stings, engines vibrate through your ribs, radio static whispers, and you still draw one more line, then choose discipline. Later, that same pencil scratches names on a board, and the silence tells you what the ocean collected. You come home because you knew when to stop. That's soldiers' lost voices, where the smallest details still carry the loudest echoes. This was soldiers' lost voices. Small details change everything. What small detail mattered most to you, and why? And what should we cover next? The long-range intercept, the fuel trap chase, or the escort discipline that kept crews alive? If this story stayed with you, tap like and leave a comment so I know it landed. Share it with someone who loves history told through the small, human details. Follow so you don't miss the next chapter. We're building these stories together, and truly, thank you for the motivation you give me every time you show up.